late. But in any case, we want to get started because I know you guys' time is valuable and you want to get home. So we're going to get started. We're going to have a really good program for you tonight. Let me just give you the highlights first. In our first hour, we're going to have Tova Aitchison, and she's going to be talking about seeding. You know, basically everything you know about starting seeds in the ground or inside. And then Adam Brooks, which is out at the registration table, is going to be talking about transplanting. How to take little seedlings that you buy either at the store or that you start yourself and to move them into their permanent home. Right after those two people talk, we're going to have you guys go out to the parking lot. We're going to do a hands-on activity where we're going to let you actually play in the dirt. You're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to seed, you're going to do some transplanting, and what you create today you can take home. Now if you don't have a garden yet, you can just get a container. Any kind of container, grow what you're getting today in those containers until you get your garden in place. You already have, anybody already have their garden? Okay, great. You're lucky. You can just go ahead and plant right in your garden. Okay, so after the hands-on activity in the parking lot, we're going to take a 10-minute break. You're going to come in and wash your hands in the bathroom, come back in here. Then we're going to have two speakers for you. Bettina, which is at the back of the room, is going to talk to you about site selection, where to put your garden, all the considerations of that, and then we're also going to have an irrigation lecture from Laura Hall after that to tell you about how to water your garden, how to save water. Then we're going to take, again, a 10-minute break. Then we're going to have Ann Urich come in and talk to you about mulching and the importance of mulch, how to select the mulch, how to use the mulch. And then finally, at the end of the night, Joni is going to be talking to you. Joni's out there at the registration table. She's going to be talking to you about gardening in a raised bed as opposed to gardening in the ground. So that's our plan for tonight. We're going to start right off with Tova. Take it away, Tova.
Okay, want you to
Sure.
nice to me?
All right. Can everybody see or touch it on more?
That should be good. All right, so my name is Tova Aitchison. I'm going to talk to you about starting seeds.
Yeah, learn it that one.
The one at the front is the way no one.
Let me find it later, sure.
Okay. Okay, so you can either start plants from seed or from the, I can't see anything.
Oh, okay.
It's like a dark room.
That better?
Or from a small plug, or you can start a bigger plant directly in the ground. If you choose to start seeds, it's going to save you a lot of money. Okay?
Oh, thank you. I'm going to fix it.
Also, it gives you the ability to grow your favorite type of a different plant, like the tomato your grandmother grew. As you garden more, you're going to find that you have favorites that you don't want just a pepper, that you want, a specific pepper. Okay. So you can either start seeds outdoors, directly in the ground, or you can start them indoors in pots. We're not ready for it yet, but we will be. If you start them indoors, you're going to be able to get your vegetables growing sooner, okay? However, if you start them outside, you only need to plant them once. I work full-time, I have children, I'm busy. Once is good for me. Okay. So, again, if you're going to start indoors, you get an earlier start. You get a higher germination rate, which means more of your seeds sprout. And also, tender plants are really tasty. And bugs and mice and rabbits love to eat them. So, again, if you start inside, you don't have, rabbits running around. You can protect your plants from miscellaneous insects. Okay, things to consider when you're going to start your seeds indoors. You're going to need a fine texture soil. You're going to need your soil to be damp. If you start with dry soil, you'll never have success.
Tiene que considerar varias cosas, por ejemplo, la textura y la humedad de la tierra. Si la tierra no está húmeda, no va a tener éxito en cambiar.
So you want it to be kind of like a wrung out towel. If you wring a towel out, it's kind of protects the wetness.
Tiene que ser una textura húmeda.
If you grow indoors, you're going to need to use either a grow light or fluorescent lights, or if you happen to have a south-facing window, you could use that.
Si plantan dentro de su casa, necesitan luces fluorescentes o luces que las ayuden a realizar las plantas o una ventana que da al sur, es mejor.
I have tiny windowsills. My windowsills aren't good for starting plants.
Las ventanas en mi casa no son buenas para empezar plantas porque son pequeñas.
Yeah. So that is something, if you're going to start indoors, you do need to be aware they need a lot of light.
Si van a empezar a sembrar dentro de su casa, no van a necesitar mucho.
Also, if you want to use, I don't know how well you can see it, this is a little plastic dome over your seed starting tray. It helps to conserve moisture.
Esta bandeja tiene un domo que le ayuda a conservar la humedad de las semillas.
One of the problems with pots is pots dry out quickly.
Uno de los problemas con las macetas es que se secan rápido.
And if your soil dries out while your seeds are just starting, they won't continue. That'll be it.
Y si las semillas se les secan cuando apenas acaban de empezar, ya no van a crecer, ya no van a tener flores.
Okay, so these can be very helpful. You can buy these really inexpensively, places like Home Depot. You can also spend a lot of money, but yeah, they are inexpensively available.
Estas se van a ayudar mucho, pueden comprar baratas en Home Depot. También hay versiones caras, pero en Home Depot pueden encontrar por un precio bajo.
Also, if you're willing to monitor them more closely, you could even use a plastic grocery bag.
Si me quieren monitorear más de cerca, incluso pueden usar una bolsa plástica.
So containers don't have to be expensive. We have a kiddie pool over here. They drilled holes in the bottom, they filled it with soil. They're going to plant directly out in the ground. This is going to be their raised bed.
Contenedores tienen que ser caros, por ejemplo, a la izquierda pueden ver, es una piscina plástica para niños que llenaron de tierra y llevan a plantar.
And then right here, this is just an egg crate, a fiberboard egg crate.
Y a la derecha es un cartón de huevos.
Again, the egg crate, it's paper, it's going to dry out really quickly.
De nuevo, el cartón de huevos de papel se les va a secar más rápido.
So some things again to remember, if you're going to plant your seeds in pots, fine texture soil or potting mix. Keep-
Cuando tengan semillas, cuando cargan semillas, se las mantengan adentro.
Keep it moist.
Macetas de textura fina que tienen que estar húmedas.
Give the plants a lot of light. Moisture domes can help keep them moist.
Domos pueden ayudar a eliminar la humedad en las semillas.
Air temperature, if you're starting seeds inside, is perfect, 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
La temperatura interior es perfecta para empezar las semillas de 65 a 75 grados Fahrenheit.
So that's basically room temperature.
Básicamente esa es la temperatura normal del cuarto.
Any container is good as long as it has drainage holes.
Cualquier contenedor es bueno mientras tenga hoyos o agujeros para drenar el agua.
If you don't have drainage holes, your plant will rot.
Si no tiene esos hoyos, la planta se va a morir.
Also, when you plant in pots, always label your seeds, because you may think you're going to remember this row here, this is my cilantro. You're going to forget. You will.
Por favor, siempre póngale un rótulo para que sepa que tiene sembrado en esa contenedor, que después se le puede olvidar.
Especially if you're planting, most of us plant several different things at once.
Esta semana está plantando más de una cosa a la vez.
Okay, so disadvantages of starting seeds indoors.
Las desventajas de empezar las semillas adentro de su casa.
You do have to check them at least once a day to make sure they haven't dried out.
Tiene que checar por lo menos una vez al día para asegurarse que no se secan.
You do have to plant them twice, once for the seed and once when you plant them in the ground.
Las tiene que plantar dos veces, una cuando pone la semilla y luego otra cuando ya la planta en el suelo.
It takes more space inside your house. A lot of us don't have that space inside.
Agarra más espacio dentro de su casa, hay muchos que no más espacio.
Also, you have to buy either potting mix or a seed starting mix.
También debe comprar mezcla para macetas.
And finally, and Adam's going to talk to you about this one, if you do start seeds indoors, they need to be hardened off, which is, Adam will go into it, but it's basically a process of slowly getting them acclimated to the outside world.
Si las empieza las semillas adentro, requiere un proceso de aclimatación antes que las plante fuera.
Okay. Advantages of starting outside, by the way, this is what I like to do.
Las ventajas de empezar las semillas afuera.
Okay. So less work, you're only planting once.
Menos trabajo, solo plantan una vez.
You don't need special lights or space indoors.
No necesita luz especial de espacio.
You can enrich your soil with your own free homemade compost. You don't have to buy expensive things.
Pueden enriquecer la tierra con luego orgánicos que se dan en su casa, no tienen que comprar mezclas caras.
They don't need to be hardened off.
No tienen que aclimatar.
And also, some plants will die if you transplant them.
Y también algunas plantas se morirán si las trasplantan.
So just quickly, a few tips for sprouting your seeds or germination.
Unos tips para que crezcan las semillas.
If you need room temperature, 65 to 75 degrees.
Necesitan temperatura normal en el cuarto, 65 grados.
If you take a wet paper towel, put your seeds on, yeah, hang on just a minute, let me finish this. Take a wet paper towel, put your seeds on it, and then let them soak overnight, they'll germinate faster.
Si moja un papel toalla y pone las semillas encima y lo deja que se agarre la humedad por toda la noche.
Question?
Yes, what happened, the room getting more cold in the night, and that's okay for the seeds?
If it's a little colder, it's fine. You're not going to want to get to 20, 30, that would be bad, but you don't want to sleep at 20 or 30 degrees either.
No, I was telling you because I got a living room and I live in my bedroom.
Okay.
And my living room is, I never had this, always cold.
Okay.
And I don't put it in my construction in there.
At night, as long as it doesn't fall below 55, you shouldn't have a problem.
De noche, mientras no la temperatura no sea menos de 50 grados, no debe tener problema.
You're welcome. So you should have all gotten a seed packet. Did anybody not get one?
Yo estoy viendo un paquete de semillas.
Okay, I'm such a teacher. I made these little tiny favors if you will. And I had such fun doing it. And all my colleagues thought it was really weird. So what I did was I went to Green Thumb and I looked for seed packets that had Spanish on the back. I wanted to be sure that everyone was going to be able to read the seed packet when they got home. So there's a lot of stuff on seed packets. We're going to go over what's really important on the front first. So first of all, they're always going to have the common and botanical or scientific name of the plant. If you're dealing with something like an herb, they'll have a picture of the plant. If it's a flower, they'll have a picture of the flowers. And if it's vegetables, they're going to have a picture of a bunch of the vegetable that grows.
Y si es de bajar el jardinero de una foto con los resultados que son de
They'll tell you how much light this is going to need.
le va a decir cuánto necesita.
Your vegetable garden pretty much is going to require full sun.
El jardín de vegetales va a requerir completo luz solar,
Which is at least 5 to 6 hours of sunlight a day.
por lo menos 5 a 6 horas de luz solar al día.
Okay, in this case, cilantro, the leaves are cilantro and the seed is coriander.
En este caso, el cilantro, la planta se llama cilantro y la semilla se llama coriandro.
So it's going to tell you what part of the plants you can use.
Le va a decir qué partes de la planta puede usar.
And then it's also going to let you know if it needs to be in the ground or if you can grow it in a pot. This one has the check, the OK mark on the pot.
Le va a decir si lo puede sembrar directamente en la tierra o en una maceta. Si pueden ver en la esquina abajo a la derecha, tiene un cheque que indica que sí se puede sembrar en una maceta.
If you wanted to, you could grow this inside your house and keep it inside your house.
Si usted quiere, puede sembrar y mantener dentro de su casa.
The back side, let's flip over and look at the back side.
La parte de atrás
Tells you how deep to sow or plant the seed.
le dice que a qué profundidad se va a plantar.
In this case, 1/4 inch.
En este caso le dice un cuarto de pulgada.
It tells you how long after you plant the seed till you can expect harvest to begin.
Le dice cuánto tiempo va a pasar desde que la siembra hasta que le puede cosechar.
Tells you what time of the year you can plant it. We're going to be down here in this part of the map.
Le dice el hijo del mapa, dice que tiempo de año puede sembrar.
If you look on the right side in the box, it tells you how long till the seedlings are going to come out of the ground.
En la derecha arriba, en esa caja, le dice cuánto se va a tardar para que los productos salgan.
In this case, 2 to 3 weeks.
En ese caso,
I'm so blind. What does it say?
5.
Okay.
5 semanas.
Tells you how much to thin them.
También les dice qué tanto, excuse me, what is thin?
Thin is basically you have to pull out or cut off plants that have sprouted if they're too close together.
Okay. También qué tanto separados, cuando ya han crecido las plantas.
If you plant them further apart to begin with, you don't have to thin them.
Sí, las plantas, sí, dice que las plantas, las dejas separadas, no hay que tener que separar como las.
That's what I did. I'm lazy as ever. Also lets you know if it's an annual.
En ese dice que se planta crece anualmente.
Keep in mind in Southern California, most annuals we can really grow all year long.
Recuérdense que en California las plantas que crecen anualmente pueden crecer durante todo el año.
Okay, so I also have for you guys downstairs when we get there, we're going to be planting either cucumber or squash. And then I'm just going to demonstrate how to do this with a garden pole beam.
Cuando vayamos a la práctica, vamos a sembrar o calabaza o pepinos y les voy a demostrar cómo hacer usando eso que tienen en la mano es lo que voy a usar para ayudar con su planta.
By the way, one thing I didn't mention, your packets are going to have in them the amount that the Master Gardener Program says you need to feed a family of 4.
En el paquete también dice lo que el maestro jardinero recomienda que se tiene que sembrar para poder alimentar una familia de 4 personas.
Oh, it says 1 inch.
Dice una pulgada.
It's very sad. And I just have LASIK too. So I have a pot of soil, I've got about half full right now. It's already moist.
Tengo una maceta medio llena, ya está húmeda.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and push the soil down lightly.
Voy a empujar la tierra un poquito.
Okay. Then you have 2 choices. Either you can plant directly and then cover them with the right amount of soil, or you can plant them directly and then just make sure you cover the seeds.
Tiene 2 opciones. O la pone en la tierra y luego le echa más tierra encima, o la pone y agarra la tierra que tiene para cubrir.
Okay, so I'm gonna just plant them the right amount of depth. A 1/4 inch is about as long as your fingernail probably is, your nail bed.
La voy a plantar y luego cubrirla a una profundidad de 1/4 de pulgada.
And I'm gonna plant 3 of these together in the pot.
Y voy a poner 3 en esta maceta.
Okay? And these seeds happen to be very large. Your cilantro seeds are kind of medium size. There are some seeds that are really, really tiny, and you will do it, somewhere where you've got really good visibility.
Estas semillas son grandes, por lo general las semillas de cilantro son tamaño mediano. Hay semillas que son pequeñas y a veces se pierden en la tierra.
When we go downstairs, we'll do our planting. In the meantime, when you grow your garden, you can end up with growing a lot of really good produce for yourself.
Cuando hagan su jardín, van a poder tener muchas verduras, vegetales.
Any questions? Yes.
So you're suggesting that when we plant the seed, we need to have moist soil?
Yeah.
Because I did it without the moist soil and they already.
Did it work? Excellent. You got lucky. There was enough moisture in there that you got okay.
But as I plant them and then I put the seeds like 1/4 of an inch, like package set. But I plant some more seeds and those other seeds haven't grown, so maybe they're dead.
Maybe, how long did it say?
Not that long.
Give it a week or so after it says, and then if nothing's happened, you might want to give up on it.
Okay.
Bienvenido, buenas tardes. Soy Alan, the gardener. Y como este señor, pues tengo la barrigueta, este señor no tiene gafas, yo sí para leer mis apuntes. Este señor viene de un libro en Inglaterra, que un señor en los periódicos ingleses pues daba consejos durante años y años. Y espero que hoy puedo dar unos consejos para trasplantar, que es lo que quiero hacer hoy. Es decir, vamos a empezar con las plántulas, las plantas pequeñas, y pasarlas a un recipiente más grande o directamente en la tierra. Por curiosidad, la manera que hablo, ceceo y todo eso, porque aprendí el español en Barcelona hace 16 años allá. Entonces tengo costumbre, alguna palabra, alguna manera de pronunciar es un poco rara. Pues entonces, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Mientras se está preparando eso, vamos a transplantar unas plantas pequeñas. Vamos a mirar cuáles que sí, es decir, cuáles las plántulas se pueden trasplantar y cuáles mejor que no. Luego vamos a mirar qué tamaño a comprar. Es decir, si no has sembrado las semillas, si no tienes las plántulas propias, hay que comprarlas. ¿Cuáles? ¿Los más grandes o las más pequeñas? Luego vamos a mirar cuándo hacerlo, cómo hacerlo y cómo cuidarlas después de trasplantar. Si empezamos con cuáles que sí y cuáles que no. Mejor sembrar directamente a la tierra las plantas como la zanahoria, perejil y el cilantro. De hecho, las semillas que tienen, pues mejor. Si están en una maceta, quedan en una maceta. Si van a la tierra, van a la tierra. ¿Por qué? Porque esas plantas tienen una raíz primaria muy larga. Si podemos imaginar la zanahoria, can you just put it up for a second? Que la raíz es muy larga, entonces aunque sea una planta muy pequeña, van a tener la raíz muy larga. A sacarlo, vamos a romperlo a sacarlo de mi jardín, y ya están rotos las raíces. Entonces, eso no quiere decir no van a crecer, pero que es bastante fuerte la planta. Entonces, esas plantas, las zanahorias, el perejil y el cilantro, mejor directamente en la tierra. Lo mismo para la patata o las papas y el maíz, directamente a la tierra. Okay. Ahora miramos qué tamaño a comprar. Aquí tenemos 2 tomateras. Uno que valen $3 y viene en una maceta bastante más grande, y uno que vale $1. ¿Cuál de los dos debemos comprar? De $1, pero es más barato. Bueno, yo diría que sí y que no. Yo incluso compraría aún más barato y más pequeño.
Depende, si tienes una buena tierra la puedes plantar la más pequeña y te va a vivir, ¿verdad? Pero si si no tienes una buena tierra, mejor la compras grande y la pones en una maceta más grande, pienso yo.
Hombre, si tienes buena tierra, todas las dos van a crecer. El motivo para no gastar dinero en comprar plantas más grandes es que se van a recuperar, van a llegar a alcanzar al mismo tamaño del grande dentro de muy poco, primero. Entonces esta planta, de aquí 10 días o así, va a llegar a ser así. Segunda cosa, la planta más grande, más madura, recibe más un shock al sacar las raíces y hacer el cambio de tierra. Entonces una planta más pequeña está más preparada para este tipo de cambio. Entonces, pues mejor comprar este de $1, yo diría aún más pequeño. En las tiendas suelen tener estos de 4 pulgadas, que son así de grandes, o estos que son, a veces son de 4, o de 6, o de 8, que son unas macetas de plástico bastante pequeñas, pero van a llegar a ser exactamente como los otros tomates. Eso no quiere decir que el tomate grande no es bueno, solamente quiere decir que no vale la pena gastar 3 o 4 veces el precio. ¿Cuándo hacerlo? Se puede trasplantar las plántulas, las plantas pequeñas, cuando hayan salido sus primeras hojas verdaderas. Eso quiere decir que al poner la semilla en la maceta van a salir unas plantas pequeñas. Aquí podemos ver unas tomateras. ¿Ven como aquí son 2 hojas ovaladas que no son muy normales para los tomates? Los tomates suelen tener hojas que son como este o este o este. Entonces las dos primeras hojas se llaman cotiledones, que son hojas que dan nutrición a la planta antes de que la planta pueda sacar su energía del sol. Entonces tenemos que esperar hasta que las hojas verdaderas salgan y luego podemos trasplantar. Si solo son las 2 primeras, no vamos a esperar un poco. ¿Bien? ¿Preguntas en este? Ok, avanzamos. Se puede trasplantar las plantas cuando no haga demasiado frío, sobre todo de noche. Como con las semillas, tenemos que esperar que tenemos las noches un pelín más cálidas, que no vamos a dar un choque de un 40 grados. Si se está a 55 a 65 de noche, mejor para las plantas. Y el último, se puede trasplantar las plantas cuando se hayan aclimatado a su nuevo entorno. Esto es lo que Dove hablaba del hardening off. El hardening off quiere decir que tienes una planta que tienes dentro de casa, una semilla que ha crecido en su casa por un sitio protegido. O tienes una planta comprada en una tienda que tienen un clima concreto. La tienda que recibe la luz que tenía, el agua que tenía. Al llegar a casa no se quiere poner la planta directamente al sol directo, porque la planta no está acostumbrada aún. Entonces lo que queremos hacer es poner las plantas en un sitio protegido durante una semana que recibe mucha luz, pero poco sol directo. Luego, a partir de una semana, 10 días, trasladamos la planta y la maceta fuera entre el sol o en un sitio que recibe más sol o más cerca del sitio donde vas a trasplantar la planta. Así la planta está hardened off, está aclimatado a su nuevo entorno. Ok, vamos a mirar. Sí. Ok, vamos a mirar, vamos a seguir un poco la... Vamos a mirar. Un momentito. Ok. Ahora, tenemos la plántula preparada, tenemos la tierra preparada y ahora es momento de trasplantar. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? Primero, excavar un hoyo un poco más profundo y bastante más ancho que el TPO. Es decir, sacamos la planta y vemos que, imaginamos eso es el cepillón, es decir, todas las raíces juntos, y queremos hacer un hoyo un poco más profundo y 1 o 2 pulgadas de espacio de alrededor del cepillón. Es decir, luego vamos a poner la planta al mismo nivel. Agarrar las hojas de la plántula, no el tallo. ¿Qué quiere decir con eso? Quiere decir, si tienes las plantas en una macetita, no queremos coger, mejor dicho, queremos coger la planta por las hojas, no por el tallo. Las hojas volverán a crecer si haces un daño, no pasa nada, van a volver a crecer. El tallo, solamente hay un tallo. Si se rompe el tallo, ya la plantita no va a crecer. Entonces lo cogemos desde las hojas. Luego, con cuidado, sacar la plántula de su maceta, cosa que ya lo he hecho. Aflojar suavemente la tierra y las raíces. Can you give me that one down? This one I didn't. Ahora, aquí tenemos las raíces allá. Este es muy pequeño, pero por ejemplo, vamos a aflojar un poco, abrir raíz, los que están abajo, las raíces, la tierra que suele estar aquí al lado, que no tiene raíz, que solamente la tierra acumulada, y luego si es un pelín más grande, a veces hay que abrirlo un poco aquí para dejar un poco de aire. Luego, plantar a la profundidad original de la plántula en su maceta. Eso quiere decir, si eso estaba en la maceta a este nivel, volvemos a...
Adam, 5 minutos más, por favor.
Vale. Vamos a plantarlo al mismo nivel en la maceta o en la tierra. Ahora me falta, voy a ponerlo acá. Echo un poco más de tierra para que sea el mismo nivel que estaba. Y por último, apretamos suavemente la tierra alrededor de la planta. Y ya está. ¿Preguntas de eso? Es lo que vamos a hacer abajo. Tenemos tomateras, tenemos pimenteros, varios tipos, que luego vamos a mirar cuáles, cómo son y todo eso, pero vamos a trasplantar algunos de estos. Ahora que hemos trasplantado las... me he olvidado. Yeah, this thing went off again.
Pues, yeah,
Right,
it's just right here.
Ahora, al trasplantar las plantas, he dicho, ponemos la plántula al mismo nivel que estaba en la maceta. Hay una excepción importante que son las tomateras. Las tomateras se van a plantar en un hoyo bastante más profundo. A ver. El motivo por eso es porque si imaginamos el tallo de la tomatera y tienes hojas por acá y luego llegar a tener hojas aquí arriba. Si quitamos todas las hojas de abajo y solamente dejamos unas hojas aquí de arriba y luego plantamos hasta el punto donde salen las hojas, todos estos puntos donde la tomatera había tenido hojas van a crecer raíces. Este va a hacer un cepillón bastante más grande. Miramos a ver si tengo quitar todas las hojas, menos las de arriba, y hacer un hoyo para enterrar la tomatera de tal forma que solo las hojas quedan fuera. Aquí es un ejemplo, ¿ves? Aquí un hoyo bastante más profundo, el tomatero, las hojas quitadas, y vamos a enterrar la planta hasta aquí para solo estos dos trozos están para crecer. Puede que el cepillón quede casi horizontal con plantas más altas. Es decir, es posible que tienes una tomatera bastante alta, pero no puede excavar un hoyo así de profundo. Entonces, se puede poner el cepillón de lado, doblar un poco el tallo y plantarlo así. Y otra vez aquí saldrán más raíces para la tomatera. Bueno, tenemos las plantas trasplantadas. ¿Qué tenemos que hacer? Cuidarlas, porque son como recién nacidos, necesitan cuidados especiales. Primero, a trasplantar queremos regar 3 veces. Regar deja que la maceta deje de chorrear, vuelves a regar, deja de chorrear y vuelves a regar. 3 veces para que la planta está bien empapada y tiene la humedad que necesita para crecer. Luego, proteger las plantas del sol fuerte durante 7 o 10 días. Durante este tiempo vamos a regar un día sí y otro no. Durante una semana, 10 días, y luego se puede abonar cada 2 semanas con un fertilizante suave, soluble en agua. Es decir, los polvos y las bolitas estas no son muy buenos para las recién trasplantadas. Mejor algo que está mezclado con agua para que no estén en contacto directamente con las raíces. Y ya está. ¿Preguntas?
Okay, do you want to give everybody instructions where to meet us in the parking lot?
Ya. Vamos a bajar todos al parking donde tenemos unas mesas preparadas. 2 mesas están para las semillas y 2 para las plántulas. También aquí tengo una lista de las plántulas que tenemos para trasplantar, es decir, unas variedades de tomates y unas variedades de pimientos. Cada familia pueden hacer de plantas 3, 4, 2, depende del tiempo que nos queda. Y luego si queda plantas, pero no tiestos, no recipientes, se puede llevar unos cuantos a casa y luego a casa buscar un recipiente, la tierra y trasplantar.
Right now we're going to go on to another topic. My name is Bettina Gotti. I'm here to talk to you about site selection and a little bit about plant cool season versus warm season plants. Let's begin with site selection. All of you are going to be getting a garden or you've already had the garden installed. The most important thing to know about growing vegetables is you want to have as much sun as possible. It's recommended in your manual, it says 6 to 8 hours, you might read 5 to hours. As much sun as possible you can give, the more the better.
I wish I had a dimmer.
So each garden will be slightly different. Maybe you don't have 6 to 8 hours of sun everywhere. What do you do in that case? Some crops can take less sun. Your root crops, your leafy crops, they can take a little bit more shade. So if you don't have full sun, or all your garden has sunnier spots and there's shadier spots, in the shady spots, you can try growing some of these types of plants.
Cada jardín es diferente, por ejemplo, los cultivos que tienen hojas pueden tolerar más sombra, por ejemplo, las zanahorias, los betabels, la espinaca y la lechuga.
But the general rule, the more sun you give your garden, the happier the plants will be and the more production you get.
Es que mientras más las plantas tengan más sol, mejor.
Now, sometimes you might have tall plants in your garden, or you're growing plants up a wall or a fence, and they create shade.
O que se ponen en una fence y van a crear sombra.
So if you have these tall plants, or you want to grow something tall in your garden, be aware that you should plant it on the north side.
O quieren sembrar plantas así de grandes, por favor, siembrarlas en el lado norte.
So a lot of people like to do beans up trellising, up a teepee or up a fence. Just put that to the north side so that the rest of the garden gets as much sun as possible.
A mucha gente le gusta sembrar frijoles a un lado y que se pongan como enredaderas en la pared para que agarre más sol, pero no le quiten sol a las demás plantas.
Another important consideration when choosing your site is have water available. You don't want to be carrying water from far away. So water nearby is important.
Asegúrense que tengan agua cerca porque no van a querer estar acarreando agua desde lejos.
Now, there's different ways you can get water to a garden, and Laura's going to go into this in more detail. Just be aware that water is one of the considerations you need to have for your garden.
Hay diferentes maneras en que pueden llevar el agua a su jardín. Les van a hablar más acerca de eso después. Nada más acuérdense que el agua es muy importante para su jardín.
And as we spoke about last week, Another important thing in having, because of raised beds, most of you are going to have raised beds or containers. An important thing to know is that's basically a big, raised bed is a big container garden. You're probably going to need to amend your soil, so that will improve your garden.
Van a tener que aclimatar o arreglar la tierra para que crezcan más plantas.
If you're doing edibles, you probably want to stay away from Miracle Grow. So that was the picture I found online.
Plantas comestibles, no vayan a usar Miracle Grow.
But that's a picture with, it's chicken manure, you can't really see this, but the bag here is chicken manure, and this is just showing a handful of good compost. So you want to improve your soil whenever possible.
La foto a la derecha muestra una bolsa de
Chicken manure?
estiércol de pollo, y a la izquierda ven un compost.
Another important thing about having in site selection and creating your garden is you want to determine how big plants are going to be that you plant when they're mature.
Que tan grande van a ser las plantas cuando ya crezcan.
Today you all planted little tiny tomato plants, but you need to be aware how big they will be when they're mature. What your manual tells you is plants should be spaced so that when they're full grown, their leaves are just
separadas para que cuando ya crezcan apenas se toquen las hojas entre sí.
Every gardener makes the mistake of trying to fit in too many tomato plants. Tomatoes get huge. So just be aware how big the plant will be and what space you have available.
En la misma maceta. Tienen que saber que las tomateras van a crecer grandes, necesitan más espacio.
People love to grow corn in summer, but corn is a crop that you need to plant in big blocks, so it might not be suitable for a raised bed.
Puede que no sea bueno para arriates.
Because if you don't plant a whole bunch of corn, you can't just plant one plant, you need to plant lots.
No puede plantar solo una semilla, tiene que plantar
and then you
varias
don't have
semillas de
space
maíz.
for anything else in the garden.
Y luego
Corn
no
might
tiene
not be a
espacio
good
para
plant, or you
demás,
plant it, but
para
you
otras
won't get
plantas.
a good production. So this just happens to show lettuce,
Esos
and
son,
it's a raised bed, I'm not sure.
a la izquierda era lechuga.
Plant selection. When you go to
Selección de
plant
plantas.
your plants, you'll see in the manual, I believe it's on page,
En la página número
on page 14 in your manual,
14,
there is a chart,
en el manual de
and
inglés,
on the chart it talks about
hay una tabla que dice que habla
recommended vegetable planting dates. Fechas recomendadas para plantar, right? And,
sobre las fechas recomendadas para plantar.
and when you get to the column all the way to the left, it
Cuando
talks
de la
about crop
última
type,
columna, en la
warm season versus
derecha.
cool season.
dice
Why
en qué
is this
es
important?
estación plantarla, durante el calor o durante el frío.
It's important to know that because
importante
if you
saber
plant the wrong
que si
plant
planta la planta equivocada,
at the wrong time of year, it's
en,
not going to produce, it's
en
not going
la
to grow,
temporada
you'll
equivocada
have
del
poor
año no
results.
va a crecer.
Warm season vegetables are those
Vegetales de la
parts,
temporada caliente.
are vegetables where you're eating the fruit or the seed.
Son
That's what the
vegetales que se
general
comen
rule
la
is.
fruta o la semilla.
And they're
La
called
realidad.
warm season plants because when
Se
you
les
harvest
llama
them is in the
plantas
summertime.
De
Starting in
la
the summer.
temporada caliente.
So right now we're into our growing our warm
cosechan
season
durante el
crops.
verano.
And if you have the Spanish manual,
Si tienen
on your
una
chart
tabla,
it'll say for the warm
en la
season,
tabla
it'll
dice
have the
para
letter
para la
C,
temporada caliente,
C for caliente, temperado caliente, right?
para la-
So you want to
es-
choose those
especifica
plants that will
temporada
grow
caliente.
during the
Quieren
warm
elegir
season,
esas-
produced during the warm season. Those would be your tomatoes,
cultivos para
beans,
plantar en la
peas,
temporada
squash,
de
todos los melones,
verano.
peppers. Those things you were planting
Tomates.
today outside are examples of warm
Frijoles.
crops.
Melones,
So if you're starting from seed,
maíz.
like
Si va a
Tova did, or
empezar desde
you know, if you're
con
starting
las
from seed at
semillas,
home, you would have started your tomatoes weeks ago. You could
tendrían
have
que haber
started them
empezado
in
los
February,
la
March,
tomatera desde hace semanas
and you'd be
atrás,
planting them
en
in your
marzo
garden.
o
If you
en
look at the
febrero.
chart, it tells you to
Y
plant
luego
anywhere
planta en su
from
jardín.
April
La tabla dice
through May,
que
probably
las
tomatoes.
tiene que plantar
Yeah,
entre
April
abril y
through May.
mayo.
So the chart tells you
La tabla
the
les
type of
dice
crop.
la
It gives, it's not a
el
complete
tipo
chart, but it's a
de
good start. And it tells
cultivo.
you
Esta tabla no está
for the
completa,
interior
pero es
valley, it
muy
gives you
buena.
what time to plant
le
it in your
da,
garden,
le
what
dice
season to plant it.
en qué temporada sembrar la
So
planta.
these are examples of warm season crops. And cool season crops,
Los
as a
vegetales
general
de la
rule,
temporada fría. La
are the
regla
vegetables
general
where we're eating
es
either
que
the
son
stem,
son
the
los
leaf, the root,
vegetales
or
en
the
los
flower.
cuales se comen el tallo.
Things
La
like
hoja,
lettuce,
la raíz o la
that happen to be
raíz o la
bok
flor.
choy, carrots, todos los cole, that's
Zanahorias,
cabbages. So those would be examples of
cebolla,
cool season
brócoli,
crops.
coliflor.
There's exceptions to the general rule.
Hay algunas excepciones a la regla general.
Peas and fava beans, which are fruits because they
Las
have the seed,
frutas
are
se llaman
a cool
peas
season
y,
crop.
frijoles fava.
and you'd be growing
So
those
then,
and eating those in the cool season.
Vegetales de la
Where
temporada
sweet
fría.
potato is a root, and New Zealand spinach is an example of a
Y
leaf,
la
a warm
espinaca
season
de Nueva
crop.
Zelanda y la
So,
papa dulce son de la temporada caliente.
another chart in your manual talks about
Otra tabla que
vegetable
está en su manual
families.
dice, habla de acerca de las familias de vegetales.
It's important to know your
Es
vegetable
importante que
families, and
usted
this is
sepa
page 13 in the
Conozca de
manual,
las familias de vegetales.
because you do not want to, in
No, usted no
your
quiere
garden, to plant the same
plantar
plant, the
la
same
misma
crop, or the same,
planta. o
if
el
it grows in the
mismo
same
cultivo.
family, like all the tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, it's important to know those are all related. So you want to practice what they call crop rotation.
Que usted necesita practicar es rotación
That just means
cultivos
plant your tomatoes in a
Plantes de
different
tomates
spot,
en
so that
partes
you're not
diferentes.
planting them in the same
para que no
spot
plante
every year. Just
En el
rotate
mismo
where your
lugar
plant
todos
is
los
going in the
años.
garden
Cada
from one
año
year to the
plántalos en
next.
diferente lugar.
So if you look at the chart on page
Si miran la
13,
tabla,
it
en la
gives you an
página 13,
example of what's in
le da un
the
ejemplo
tomato family, the
de
Solanaceae.
las
So you
familias de
just
los
need to be
tomates.
aware
Tienes
of
que
which
saber
plants, what family
qué
they belong
plantas,
to,
qué
and
a qué familia
try to
pertenece
move
esa
those
planta
around your garden where you plant them from one year to the next.
y plantarlas alrededor en el jardín. de un
Last
año
but
al
not
otro.
least, when
El
to
último,
plant
pero
your
no menos
vegetables,
importante, cuándo
it's
plantar sus
just
vegetales.
where to get that information is use your
Cuando se conoce
manual, look at
información,
the
está en
seed
su manual,
packets.
miren el
Another good
paquete de
source of
las
information
semillas.
is catalogs. Sometimes you're looking, these happen to be examples of different seed catalogs I brought in today, which I can pass around.
Se le puede
But,
pasar para que ustedes lo vean.
You can get information from seed
Pueden
packets, from reading the catalog,
sacar
from your
información
books.
en los
You can call them
catálogos,
after
en
Gardener
libros,
Helpline. But
pueden
you
llamar
need
en
to be
el
aware if you go to
número de los
nurseries
jardineros, pero si usted va a tener un
that
jardín,
sometimes you can
un
find
vivero,
tomatoes
si usted va a tener un
for
vivero,
sale in the nursery in
puede
January.
encontrar
Does that mean it's
tomates
a good time
a
to
la
plant
venta
it in the
en
garden?
viveros en enero.
No.
Pero será
So you have to be
temporada
aware
para
that a
sembrar?
lot of
No.
times
Tiene que
nurseries
saber
will
que
try to be
muchas
selling you
veces los
tomatoes
viveros
to
le
plant in
van a
January.
querer
You really
vender
want to wait
las
till
semillas de
April
tomate en enero,
or
pero
May
usted
to
quiere
plant your
esperar
tomatoes
hasta
because they need that
abril
warm
o
soil
mayo
and
para
they need that
sembrar,
warm
porque
weather.
necesitan tierra tibia o caliente.
And then that same chart of the recommended planting dates gives you some of the information for some of the vegetables. Like I said, you can go
De los vegetales,
get information
Pueden
online,
ver
you can look at
información
seed
en
catalogs, I'll
internet.
just pass these around. And they're fun for
voy a
just,
pasar estos catálogos.
seed catalogs are great for just kind of browsing through to get ideas
Son
of
buenos
maybe what
para
you want to
poder,
grow. Another
ideas
great
acerca
source
de
for
qué quiere
finding
cultivar
out what
usted.
to plant when and
Otras-
where is go to your local community
Usted
gardens.
puede ir al
Nearby.
jardín comunitario para saber qué plantar.
Yep. Nearby here in Pacoima, you have Roger Jessup Park, and there's a community garden. See what the gardeners are growing. That'll tell you what grows in your
Vean qué es lo
area.
que los jardineros están sembrando ahí.
And
Y
if
decir
you're visiting
qué
a community
crece en su
garden,
zona.
they might share plants with you or seeds
Ellos
with you.
pueden que lo compartan
So it's a
con
great
plantas.
resource. Question?
Es una-
Yeah, can you write the name for the garden close to here in Pacoima to see, to visit?
Yeah, it's right off Osborne, I believe.
Está
Just,
en
it's called
Osborne.
Roger Jessup Community
Roger
Gardens. I'm not sure if it
Jessup
has a specific
Jardín
name.
comunitario.
There's a
Roger
park, and at the
Jessup.
back end of the park,
Es un
up on the
parque
hill, is the
y
community
en la parte
garden.
de atrás, en la
¿Dónde está el
colina,
aeropuerto?
está el jardín.
Donde está el aeropuerto por acá.
Yeah, detrás del
Así
aeropuerto.
por donde están los bomberos grandes,
Ahí
allá,
están los
por la
bomberos.
Osborne, enfrente de la Vallarta, para allá para abajo. Del parquecito ese que está chiquito.
En el parquecito.
Oh, okay.
And they have fruit trees, they have vegetables, they have a little bit of everything. So it's interesting to go to these places and you can see what people are growing. Like, I know my local community garden, they grow chipalín and other things I never heard about. So you cannot find those things in seed catalogs. You have to find a gardener that's growing them and ask them to share the seed, or share if there's a special plant you want. Sometimes that's your best source for finding it, is going to these community gardens and finding out, because there's people who are growing things they might have brought or they've been passed along. So it's another great resource. So I would encourage you, since it's nearby, maybe on a weekend, it's probably open from, I imagine they close at 6 or 7, close the gates, but during the day it would be open, and it's a good, it's fun to go and just see what's there. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In what place are we at? Like, it says north.
We're in the interior valley, I would say. On that chart, recommended planting dates on page 14. What I did is I just highlighted mine in yellow, but you would be the third one over. Interior valleys. We're not along the coast. We're not the north coast. We're the third one. So, for example, beans. It tells us in interior valleys we can plant in 2 different seasons, directly in the ground. April through May, or July through August. They're telling us. So I guess June is not a good month to plant. But pretty much from now through the summer, you could try starting beans in the ground. So, and what you're doing is you're looking at crop type, gives you whether it's warm season, cool season. And then the last column gives you a recommendation for a family of 4, how many plants to plant. It's general information just for you to use in planting your garden. Any other questions? Okay, now I
I
think
have one question.
oh yes.
My question is about the onions. I had some onions in my little garden. But they come the flower. They need gather the flower or leave the flower.
Is it one you're growing for the bulb, or is it like a chive? Is it cebollina?
It's
a big bulby
white onion. I put it because they have come like little things to growing in now. They looks like.
Because for the big bulbing onions, I know they tell you to bend over the flower stalks so that it kind of puts energy into creating a bigger bulb.
Yeah, they have a bigger place.
Because there's different types of onions, and there's the little green bunching ones.
It's the little onion, white onion, brown onion, something like that.
Yeah.
Entre blanca y café.
I'm not really an onion expert. Laura, do you have? And then you have long season and short season. Yeah.
Tiene temporada corta, temporada larga. Tiene cortada la flor, pero también se la puede comer.
Las flores también tienen el sabor de cebolla y son muy ricos.
But if you want to get the big bulb, either break the stem, bend it over, cut it off.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I think we're going to go on to irrigation now. So
Vamos a pasar a la irrigación.
How do I get out of this? Oh, mulch, sorry. I don't know how to turn the machine off.
Nuestro tema es mantillo. Vamos a hablar de mantillo.
I'll need someone to turn the machine off because I just heard how to turn it on. I don't know how to turn it off.
Entonces, hay muchas maneras de regar a sus plantas y ellos me dijeron que ustedes van a recibir unas cosas para regar que se llama drip. Y esta es una manera muy eficiente. Ah, qué fácil. Pero hay otras maneras que ustedes deben saber. Pues, how would you say watering can? Regadera. Okay. Las regaderas, pues, son muy útiles para los niños, porque ellos pueden usarlos y les gustan apoyar en el jardín, pero no caben mucha agua. Y entonces no son muy útiles para regar espacios muy grandes, pero los me gustan para usarlos con estudiantes, con niños. Y se pueden hacerlos de macetas, escotes. Sí, reciclados from laundry detergent bottles.
¿Botellas de detergente?
Sí. Una manera de reciclar, usar algo diferente, va a ser interesante para los niños otra vez, para que ellos puedan participar. Mangueras. Creo que todos ustedes conocen mangueras. Son fáciles para utilizar, pero a veces caben mucho y para un espacio grande es difícil y toma mucho tiempo para regar un espacio grande. Pero hay otro tipo de manguera. Yo voy a pasar esta para que todos ustedes puedan verlo. Esto es muy útil para casi todo tipo de plantas. La manguera toda, how do you say, the whole hose, hoyos. Does hoyos mean the whole? You can look at it. A veces no entiendo tampoco. Esta es muy eficiente y es bastante fácil para usar porque es, ¿qué?
Es una manguera en goteo.
¿En
¿verdad?
goteo?
Sí, porque gotea solo little
O
drops.
drops, sí,
Yeah.
gotea, sí.
Y dicen que cuando uno pone little drops en las plantas, funciona mejor que echarle un chorro de agua. Porque
Sí.
ya es
Sí,
better.
exactamente, sí, estoy aprendiendo. Es muy útil para mí practicar siempre. Yo enseño en un colegio y casi todos mis estudiantes son latinos, pero creo que un medio no habla español, pero todos sus padres sí. Sí, entonces yo practico con sus padres. Y también manguera de goteo.
Gotea.
Goteo.
Es un sistema de goteo.
Está bien para los árboles.
Sí. A mis árboles les encanta el agua de goteo.
Sí.
Cuando les echo agua fuerte, como decir, le echo cuento 20 min, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slow.
Sí.
Giro como si la pongo en goteo. Le voy una hora y lo dejo bien goteando un poquito y se ponen bien felices mis árboles.
And how would you say timer? ¿Tiempo?
Sí.
Timer? ¿Tiempo?
Sí.
Un medidor de
¿Tiempo?
tiempo.
¿Es un tiempo? Okay. ¿Alrededor? Estamos aprendiendo juntos. Ok, este es un medidor de tiempo y es sencillo para usar. Are they going to receive timers with their kits? No? Okay. Esta cuesta como $30, creo. Y no hay que usar uno, pero si no puede estar en casa para unos días o si hace mucho calor, ustedes tienen que trabajar. Es útil que esta puede pensar para usted. Y se puede usar esta con la manguera de gotea, con una manguera regular, con cualquier cosa. Y how would you say to attach? How does it attach?
Saturarlo.
Okay.
Saturarlo, ponerlo en alguna parte.
So it attaches just to a regular, what we call a hose bib.
Se conecta con esto.
Oh, conecta. See, I knew all of these words. I just forgot them. Today, hoy, mis estudiantes tomaron el examen de AP de la clase de español y yo tomé este examen hace 20 años más o menos y yo recibí un grado perfecto, pero muchos años. Y he olvidado un poquito, pero yo sabía sí, hace unos años. Okay, otra vez. What were you saying? What the timer was called?
Mediador de tiempo.
Mediador de tiempo. Okay, drip irrigation es lo más eficiente y se puede dar más agua para una planta que necesita más y menos aquí. Lo tipo que ustedes van a recibir tiene una manguera de media pulgada y esto es de un cuarto de pulgada y es bastante fácil para usar. Y también hay estos que pueden caber con este sistema. Este es un tipo de sprinkler. How would you say sprinkler? Regador. I could use regador para todo. Pero está muy chiquito. A ver, estas regadoras chiquitos para un sistema de drip. Y esta es útil para un árbol de fruta o una planta más grande. Se puede poner una regadera cada árbol o dos para un árbol.
¿Y esos los compran como en Home Depot?
Sí.
¿Y esos como cuánto cuestan?
Los chiquitos se puede comprar 3 en una paqueta para como $4. Y creo que ustedes van a recibir un kit, un equipo que tiene las cosas que van a necesitar para su sistema. Voy a pasar esta también. Es útil ser familiar con las partes. Por muchos años yo pensaba que nunca iba a hacer un sistema de drip, que no podía hacerlo. Pero nunca he tratado. Pero pensé que era muy complicado y quizás necesito un hombre hacerlo para mí. Pero yo traté y me di cuenta de que es fácil. Y no necesito que alguien hacerlo por mí. Para mí. Para mí, sí. Yo puedo hacer. Esta es tool. Herramienta. Sí, I knew that word too. Herramienta para hacer how do you say Sí, bueno, este es el herramienta para hacer el hoyo.
¿El hoyo en dónde se hace con eso?
La manguera de medio pulgada. I always mix up the word for flea and inch. I don't know why, but in my head I cannot keep them straight.
They sound the same.
It
Pulga
makes,
and pulgada.
yeah, it makes, once I was giving a talk with a friend of mine about fertilizer and I could not remember the word estiércol. I could not remember it and I was trying to translate and I looked at him and I knew what I wanted to say and I thought, you know, I said, caca de vaca. And the whole audience and including my friend were like falling over laughing and laughing. I said, but you knew what I meant. Tengo unas cosas más que puedo mostrarles. Este es un ejemplo creo que es difícil ver aquí, pero este es un ejemplo de cómo se va a parecer las cosas que ustedes van a recibir, pero es difícil verlo en la foto.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
When is the best time to water the plants?
To water. See, I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
One last watering type, and then I'll move on to how to water. This is a traditional way to water in dry places, and we live in a dry place. Las macetas de
Barro.
clay,
Barro.
barro,
Yes. Clay barro.
clay,
Clay, es barro.
sí. Se puede poner agua en esta y si tienen un lugar donde no tienen una manguera, no hay lugar para una manguera, no tienen lugar para cualquier cosa, esta no requiere nada complicada. Y se pueden hacerlos de estas macetas chiquitas. Son
Y esas tiran el agua solas, echan el agua así como que la sueltan sola, la maceta.
Sí, y se pueden usarlos en, pues,
No,
estas son macetas chiquitas y tienen una huella al fondo,
Pero pone silicón.
¿qué?
Y pone
Sí.
silicón.
Silicón, sí, que se puede comprar en cualquier Home Depot, Ash, tienda de herramienta.
¿Y cuánto tiempo dura el agua en esas macetas para que la rieguen?
Son útiles porque la agua va más por abajo y mucha gente no piensa en que la agua tiene que regar a las raíces que están al fondo y no están aquí.
No nomás arriba, sino abajo.
Sí. Okay. Y también se pueden usar estas macetas para leche, agua, jugo y se pone un hole, olla al fondo y fill it with water. Switching. I must be tired because cuando estoy cansada no hablo.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, pues ¿cuánto y cuándo? Pues depende de la tierra, qué tipo de tierra, si pues si hace calor, si hace frío, si está lloviendo, si el aire está muy seco, pero yo siempre miro a la planta y pienso, ¿dónde están las raíces? Si es una planta chiquita, nuevo, las raíces no son una pulgada, pequeñas. Pero es un árbol, necesita más agua y hay que regarlo por menos veces, pero mucho tiempo. We say you want to water the root zone, la zona de raíces. Quieren darlas mucha agua. Es un poquito difícil ver, pero esta imagen muestra las raíces de verduras comunes y se puede mirar, imagínense que esta es una lechuga y está muy chiquita aquí, la parte que nos podemos ver, pero mira las raíces, 4 pies. Entonces, cuando la planta está nueva, un bebé, necesita menos agua, pero muchas veces, quizás 2 veces por día si hace calor. Pero las plantas chiquitas, nuevos, cada día, pero cuando tienen más raíces, después de unas semanas, quizás un mes, menos agua. Y yo debo decir, más agua, pero menos veces. Quizás cada otro día o cada semana para una planta grande. Para los árboles, otra vez cuando están chiquitos y no tienen muchas raíces, necesitan más agua más frecuente, pero después de unos meses o unos años, quizás una vez por mes durante el invierno y una vez por semana durante el verano. Y para las frutas, y en frutas incluyo tomates, pepinos, todo eso, el sabor es más fuerte. El sabor es más fuerte con menos agua. Entonces, la planta necesita un poquito de agua para sobrevivir, pero si les da mucha agua, yeah, I only have a few sides. No tiene sabor tan fuerte.
That's really true that,
Yeah.
because my neighbor told me my orange, they are so sweet because I don't erase too much the plant. I put it, like you say, 1 time a week. Son las naranjas más dulces que puedo hacer.
Yeah, it's the amount of water y también el calor. Porque el azúcar en frutas depende mucho en el calor también. Pero el sabor y el azúcar, como por ejemplo, donde crecen uvas para vino, ellos miden el azúcar en la fruta cada día y no dan agua cuando la fruta está creciendo porque no quieren mucha agua, quieren mucho sabor, mucho azúcar, un sabor muy fuerte para el vino. Pero las frutas que se compran en una tienda son grandes, un durazno aquí, así. Es mucha agua, porque se venden por la libra. Y entonces los graneros quieren darles mucha agua, pero a veces hay una manzana así chiquitita, pero un sabor muy fuerte, muy rico. Pero también el calor para las frutas está mucho sabor y mucho azúcar también. Si no hace mucho calor, no hay tanto azúcar. ¿Otras preguntas?
¿Cuánto cuesta más o menos el sistema de goteo?
¿Esta? Pues esto yo compré en Osh y estaba en venta por quizás $4, pero imagino regularmente 6. Esto es solamente de 25 pies, pero 25 no es mucho para make a lot of turns, pero no son muy caros. Sí. Y sí, and she's going to get into this with the mulch, pero esta, if it's exposed to the sun, si le toca el sol, no, it doesn't last.
No dura mucho tiempo.
Sí, pero if you cover it with mulch, si lo cubre con tierra o con mulch,
De lo especial de la mulch.
yeah, it will last many years.
Señorita, y ella quería saber a qué horas debíamos de regar. Yo también quiero saber.
Oh, sí, las horas o tiempo de día. Okay, es mucho mejor si uno se levanta temprano, muy temprano por la mañana, como 6 de la mañana, perfecto. Pero si no se puede en la mañana, más tarde. El tiempo donde no se quiere regar es durante el mediodía, porque mucho va a evaporar en el aire. Pero muy temprano o muy tarde. pero
¿Qué pasa si tú riegas como a las 10, 11 de la noche? ¿Está bien? Porque
Pues
a mí me gusta regar a esa hora.
oh, sí, sí. Mi vecino también, siempre a medianoche él está afuera cuando hace mucho calor durante la noche en el verano. Pues aquí no tenemos muchos problemas con esta porque el aire se seca muy rápidamente. Pero si estábamos en un lugar muy más tropical o con más agua, sí hay problemas con fungus. Hongos, sí. Pero aquí no tanto. Pero es porque estamos en un lugar muy seco, árido.
Yo tengo otra pregunta. Si ¿afecta que le ponga a uno agua directamente a la planta o no? ¿O se
sí.
puede poner solamente en el tallo para papá?
Es mejor, pues las plantas se toman las nutritivas y todo con el agua. Y es mejor poner el agua en la tierra, no en las hojas. Pero a veces con los árboles, aquí el aire está un poquito sucio. Sí, a veces, de vez en cuando, como una vez por mes, 4 veces por año, lavar las hojas de los árboles, especialmente con limones, naranjas, les gustan que imagínense que una hoja es un panel solar, que el hoja toma el sol y si está muy sucio no puede tomar el sol, entonces lavarlos, pero para las plantas como lechuga, tomates, pepinos, que no viven por mucho tiempo, no están tan sucios porque viven por poco tiempo y se puede tener problemas con hongos también que están en el agua. Entonces, es mejor regar solamente en la tierra alrededor porque es que queremos dar agua a las raíces. Porque es las raíces que hagan todo. Es lo mismo con darles de comer, es las raíces, la tierra. Queremos cuidar a la tierra. Que la tierra da todo. Si tenemos tierra sana, tenemos plantas sanas. ¿Vale? Thank
I have a small tree.
Is it small and young or just small?
I think that it's a dwarf tree. And I planted it like maybe a year ago. But all the leaves are yellow and it had some flowers. It had a bunch of flowers, but all of them dropped.
Is it
It
a
doesn't
citrus
have-
tree, like an orange?
Yeah,
or something?
it is a mandarin tree.
Is it in a pot or in the ground?
No, it's in the ground. It's in
So there's a couple things that could be going on with that. My initial thought would be that if citrus trees like to be dry, and if the soil doesn't dry out in between waterings, they become susceptible to diseases that will cause them to drop their leaves. So a tree, you really don't want to water too often. So a veces es útil tocar a la tierra para saber si está seca o no. So I would stick my hand a couple inches in the soil, and it should be dry 2 inches down between watering for citrus trees. Now, here in the valley, the soil is usually pretty good. You know, this was a floodplain, and it drains pretty well. But if you were in a place with clay soil or your water doesn't drain, like if you put water and the water takes a long time to go down, it could be that it's not getting enough drainage. That's my guess, because that's a common problem for citrus trees that I see. But the yellowing of the leaves can also just be a simple nitrogen deficiency. So you could try giving it some manure, a little nitrogen, and seeing if it does better, and then just only water it like every 2 to 3 weeks. So I try.
Pero si tiró toda la fruta.
If it drops all the fruit, yeah, you'll have to wait until next year.
Para la enfermedad. Eso lo he hecho 2 años consecutivos.
Si le fertiliza.
Si le pones agua
Y le puse-
todos los días, se cae la flor o la fruta. Tiene que ser cada tercer día.
Tienen que
One
secar.
day and un day off.
¿Qué significa que esté seca la tierra? ¿Tiene que estar seca o como seca, húmeda?
Es que las raíces van muy por abajo, 2, 3, 4 pies, un árbol así, y pues no importa tanto si está seca las 3 pulgadas más por arriba, es que muy por abajo que se seca de vez en cuando, porque si queda mojado por mucho tiempo hay organismos que se comen las raíces, a los tips, how do you say tips?
Las puntas.
Sí, las puntas. But if you think it's not getting enough water, because that could be the same problem.
No, yo creo que tiene mucha agua.
Yeah, it might be overwatered. It's very, very common because we usually, when we pensamos, cuando ve que una planta parece que tiene mucho estrés, queremos darle agua. Pero hay muchas plantas que no les gustan mucha agua, como aquí romero, lavandula, muchos árboles que no
El
necesitan
aguacate
mucho.
no le gusta mucha agua tampoco.
¿Qué?
El avocado.
¿Avocado? Sí.
Because my husband drain the avocado every day y start brown the little puntitas. Y alguien que sabe de agricultura me dijo, necesita potasio, they need potasio.
Actually, the tips browning is a sign of salt poisoning. Es muy común con las aguacates porque son muy sensitivos. Cuando una hoja, la punta está
Se ve brown,
brown, café, es demasiado sal en la tierra. Y aquí en el oeste hay un poquitito de sal en el agua. Es por eso que las plantas les encantan la lluvia, porque en la lluvia no hay nada mal. Pero la agua de aquí, de la manguera que tomamos, tiene un poquito de sal. Entonces, si tienen puntas de café, pone agua un poquito con la manguera por 4 o 5 horas. O toda la noche, una vez, 2 veces por año, y se va a crecer otras hojas nuevas.
Yo le puse cáscara de plátano y se le quitó lo brown. They're going out the brown. Le puse the shell for the eggs and the cáscara de plátano.
That could be too. I mean, it helps, pero es muy común con los aguacates y muchas veces por año las hojas secan y se pierden las hojas y crecen otras. Es como, no es un problema muy serio. Okay, so you gotta move on. I know.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for being so patient and letting me practice my Spanish with you.
Do you want to, we can just go to our next 2 speakers and then we can go home early, or would you like to take a short break now?
Si quiere podemos pasar.
You want to continue? Okay, all right, Laura has an announcement.
Tengo un anuncio muy rápido. No lo hicimos la primera semana de su clase, pero ¿se acuerdan que les había platicado la orientación de hacer horas? 4 horas por semestre, por temporada.
All right, our next speaker is going to talk to you about the importance of mulch. And I'd like to introduce you to Ann Urich. And Ann will give you a little introduction. Tell you just a little about yourself. Oh, because you know that you're related to the over, right?
I am a little bit, yes. Hi, my name is Ann and welcome. I've been here a few times. I volunteered with Ernie Miller downstairs in your kitchen making Meyer lemon marmalade, and another time we made Meyer lemon and Earl Grey tea. jelly. So that's my association with your great organization. I'm going to give a little presentation on mulch today, and I have these 2 flyers for you. One is about free wood chips, and it tells you where you can go to get free wood chips for your mulch. And the other one also gives you a number of places in the valley where you can go get a really good mulch that's been composted a bit longer than wood chips. So I'm just going to have, maybe you could just pass these around, just pass them down. Okay, so let me start with, there's basically 3 kinds of mulch. There's the soil conditioning mulch, which is this one right here. You see that it's fine. It's still got little bits of sticks in it, but it's moist and it's very dark. There's green mulch, which is this right here. This is basically right out of the shredder. It's from yard clippings and trees that have been cut down. And this will actually, in 30 days, in a compost situation, turn into this. And another 30 days, this will become compost. So it's the whole process of composting. So we're starting with the mulch that you'll put on your garden after you've already decided where you're going to plant your garden, and you've prepared your soil, and you've chosen your plants. And so now, once you get them in the ground, you want to be sure after you water them properly, you want to be sure that you save the water, that the water doesn't evaporate. So if you put 2 to 3 inches of compost over the soil, around the plants, not close to the roots of the plants or the stems, it will help save the water. It'll keep weeds from growing. It's very good for keeping the temperature accommodating, so that in the summer, when it's really, really hot, it keeps the soil cool. And when it starts to cool off in the winter, it'll keep it a little bit warmer, which helps us extend the growing time. So you can actually grow your plants longer if you have a good layer of compost. Other things that you can use for compost, I have here cocoa mulch. It's the shell from the cocoa bean, and it smells actually very good. It's a very good mulch for your garden. It'll compost right into the soil, and you can dig it in. You do have to keep putting it on during the season, though, because it will decompose. Other free things that you can use for mulch are newspapers. You don't want to use the newspapers with the ink on it, because that's toxic. But if you use the pages that just have the printing on it, you can shred them, or you can just lay them on the ground around your plants. Again, not by the roots or by the stems. And you can put grass clippings over that. And as you water during the season, it will start to break down and decompose, and you just dig that back into the soil. It'll go into the soil, and it'll provide nutrients and nitrogen in the soil. And then you just do this again. So that should take about 3 or 4 weeks for it to break down, and you just have to keep replacing it. Another thing that you can use that's free is cardboard. The same situation as newspaper. You just have to cut it in strips and place it again around your plants. And if you want to, you can cover it with yard clippings. And it'll take longer to decompose, but when it starts to break down, you can just stick it into your soil. Another thing you can use that's free is carpeting. Used carpeting is great. You can find it on Craigslist, or maybe Free Cycle has free carpeting. You don't want the pad, because that's spongy. It'll absorb the water, and it won't let it get down to the roots of the plants. You just want the carpeting, and that will let the water seep through. It'll also keep weeds from growing up, and that will last you maybe 2 or 3 years. Another great free source is animal bedding. If you or friends of yours have rabbits or chickens, that's really great to use for both compost and mulching. These here are mulches that you can buy at the Home Depot or any landscaping store. And these are just pure wood. This one here is pure cedar bark. You see it's been shredded. It's got some larger pieces and smaller pieces. This is good for mulch in the garden. These are pine bark, just pure bark off of the pine trees. This is good for your walkways, Another thing that's good for your walkways is just straw. That just keeps you from tracking mud and keeps weeds from growing in your walkways between your garden. And this is a new kind of mulch. It is a natural fiber. It's from trees, and they can dye these to be different shades of brown or red or gold. It's more of a landscaping thing, so if you have like next to your driveway or whatever, you want to put mulch around your trees or bushes, you can use that, or you can use pebbles. You can use the volcanic rock. They also make a mulch out of rubber. They make pebbles out of rubber that's recycled tires. Yes.
Los pedacitos de madera, the little things for a good, like you say in the backpack, they are good for the trees to put it like that, like in the middle for the tree, or how can they put it?
For the trees, around the trees, you want to keep it away from the trunk of the tree though. But it's good to have a good 6-8 inches away outside, like 6 inches from the tree, and then you want to go out. Because you don't want the lawnmower or the weed whacker to be coming next to the tree and cutting away at the tree. It'll get diseased and it can die. It can dry out. So yes, you can put it around the tree. This is great for around the tree because it'll last longer than say this. This will break down really fast. So will this. But this is good. This kind of a mulch is good for around the tree. And I have on the flyers that are going around, these are places where you can get free compost. You can get this one. The closest one for this area is the Lopez Canyon. If you take Paxton Street all the way east, it runs right into the sanitation plant. And you drive in, and there's usually 2 or 3 mounds, big mounds, of this kind of mulch that you can just pick up yourself. You take your own bags and your shovel, and you take as much as you need. This I have on the handout also is free, and again you go down and you bring your own bags and your shovels and you take as much as you want. The only issue with this is that you do get bigger sticks. You get live plants, and they could, because you don't know where they've come from. There could be pesticides that have been used in these yards, or they could have some diseases. Until this is composted and the heat and the microbes from the composting process breaks it down and makes it like this, this is a little more problematic to use because you can be transferring disease to your garden. So this, which is free and is very close to here, is a very good option. So do you have any questions? Did everybody get a flyer? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
You guys have fun with your hands-on planting, little thing and all that? You guys feel like you're learning more, knowing more than when you walked in the door? Because you've been learning a lot. Okay, you've learned about composting and soil building and mulching and all the good things. So let's go on to where we put the plants, okay? Now, there's a couple of ways we could grow plants. One would be in raised beds, but even whether you're in containers or raised beds or in the ground, there's some basic rules that you'd want to follow. And just to start out with one, we would look at how you're going to maintain it. Don't ever plant more than what you could really take care of, because I'm going so fast, because you want to be able to maintain the garden. And there's going to be weeding and watering and trimming the plants and what have you. So that's one of the rules. Don't plant more than what you really can maintain. Also, I would plant you know, things that you want, you know, to eat. And also be considerate of like the space you have. Don't grow a big watermelon vine if you have a small space. Grow something that like will give you more food, like beans or corn or something like that, rather beans or tomatoes or what have you. Also, it's a good idea to put your garden down on paper first. That way you can actually see what you're growing, and it's very easy to keep track as far as plant rotation. When you want to know what you're growing, you could go back to the paper because, you know, you can forget. It's like a diary of your gardens, and you can also learn that way. I grew tomatoes here this year, and I don't want to keep growing tomatoes here, so next time I'll grow lettuce. So if you have it on paper, it's a lot easier to follow that way. And then you want to pick a site that has at least 8 hours of sun. That's always, you know, something you want to do. And as Bettina said, the right plant for the right season. Those are important things to follow. Okay, now what I did was, I don't have a big PowerPoint presentation, so I just printed up some of my photographs to give you some ideas of what raised beds could be made out of, because we're going to go over that. They can be made out of almost any kind of materials. And I'm going to go over some of the pros of why you would want raised beds. Okay, first, they look really neat in the landscape, and you can make them out of a variety of materials, wood, stone. You can make it out of cinder blocks or stacked broken concrete. It's a great opportunity to, am I going too fast? It's a great opportunity to be creative in the garden, and, you know, maybe use some materials that you have access to that you can recycle, like old stacked concrete, rocks, whatever. As long as you can build up a wall, you can make a bed out of it. Another reason why you might want to use raised beds is for drainage. Perhaps, you know, you might have an area that floods during the rainy season. This would be something that could resolve that. Another reason is that poor soil conditions. You might need raised beds because you have heavy clay or sand, or worse, you might have some contaminants in the soil. Excuse me, I'm gonna get some water. Water my crops. Anyway, that's another reason. Like heavy clay, you know, you might have soil conditions you might want to address. And then it keeps that amended soil that you work so hard on. You're putting compost and manure and all of this into the soil. It keeps that soil out of the path where it's going to be trampled and ruined, so you kind of consolidate what you're doing in one place where the plants can use it. Also, it's easier to control pests in raised beds. It keeps people off of the raised beds, keeps them from trampling your soil. And it keeps it's easier to keep all the critters out. It's, like I said, it's a better method for crop rotation. If you want to say, you could say bed A, row 1, is growing like cilantro in it. Bed A, row 2, maybe you're growing like some kind of green, and you can just write that down, and then it'll be easier for you to, when it comes to crop rotation. And then it's also something that is good when you're physically disabled or challenged, should I say, because you can raise the bed like up to the waist level, and someone who's elderly can't bend over a lot, or someone in a wheelchair can access it a lot easier. So those are some of the great reasons for raised beds. Now when it comes to that, there's a couple of dimensions that are recommended, but I would always recommend building it to your particular stature. The dimensions usually are at least 12 inches deep to 3 feet. And that depends on, how it could be for a couple of reasons. The type of crops you're growing, as well as accessibility. And when it comes to the width, if you can only access it from one side, you only want it as wide as you can reach your arm into. So that's something that you want to consider. So that's like, if you can access it from both sides, you can have a bed as wide as 4 feet. If it's one side, you don't want it anything over 3 feet. Okay. the idea is basically being able to access your vegetables from the tap and not, you know, having to, you know, step into your bed. So that's the main thing. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for raised beds. It's something that you guys are all going to get. It's going to be the way to grow your vegetables, but eventually you will put something in the ground, whether it's a fruit tree or you overflow, you want to grow other things, so you're going to be doing some in-ground. So did you guys pass that, or did everybody get to see the examples of the raised beds? Okay, well, next we're gonna go to in-ground planting, and there's a little garden I did on the side of the house, so you can take these little areas that people just usually walk through and they're not being very useful, and you can turn it into a garden. Okay, well, the same rules apply, whether you're planting in a bed or planting in the ground or in pots. It's all about the sun and the mulching and the good soil conditions. But one of the things that we like to do when we're going to start a new garden in a place that has never been gardened in, you might have some very super compacted soil. So you're going to do something called double dig. And that's basically going down 24 inches. And say this is like the top 24 inches. And how you do that, you're going to take a regular shovel and you're going to kind of dig a trench. And you're going to take out the first 12 inches. And this is what represents the first 12 inches. And you're going to take this part out. And then you're going to dig this part and move it over here. And you're going to continue to do that. Basically, well, you're going to take all of this out. I'm sorry. Excuse me, I messed up. You're going to take all of this out. And then you're going to move this part like this. The bottom 12 inches. And you're going to dig that with the... You understand what did I mess up? Can you understand what I'm saying? You're going to take this row out. This row is going to go completely out. And you're going to take that out with a shovel. And then you're going to break up the second with the fork. You're going to take that out. And then you're going to keep moving it, and you're going to mix it with compost as you move it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So then, like I say, there's so many benefits, you know, to growing things, but this is one thing that you do that you want to do once. You don't want to continue to double dig, as Pam mentioned about the ecology of the soil. It's like a network there that you break up the connections. It's sort of like you took the bridge out between the connections, between the plants and the things that they need. So that's why you kind of want to do that only one time and then let it connect back to the way it should be as far as the ecology of the soil. Okay. There's so many benefits to growing your own food, and one of the best things is going shopping in your own backyard. You know, it's free. You get the bragging rights when you bring your friends and family. Hey, come here, look at my tomatoes. And here, let me give you some, you know. And then you get to feed your friends and family like healthy, clean, nutritious food that's free of pesticides and chemicals. And then the physical activity is like great for your mind, your body, your spirit. And you get to create a great green space for your family and friends to come and enjoy. It's a living classroom where you get to experiment. You can grow 4 or 5 different kinds of tomatoes, or tomatillos, or chayote, or whatever you need. And you will never get the type of things that you can grow and get by seed. You'll never see this in the market because they just won't be there. So you get to see you get so much variety in your life. And then I think this is the best part of all, that you get to share it with your friends. You know, you get to bring people in and they get to experience, because once you start gardening, you're gonna like do this forever. You're gonna be sharing it with your people, your friends, your family, and I think that's the best part of it all. So anyway, that's about it. Now you know where to place your plants. That's it. All right, thank you.